My name is Charlotte Adelman at this time, and before the war, my name was Charlotte Rosenzweig. And do you want to spell my name?
If you can.
Yeah, Rozencwaigj. And I was in Paris in the 11th arrondissement, and we lived in a beautiful building that it was no building like that in Paris. It was very modern. We had all the equipment like bathroom, showers, incinerator, and it was 4 buildings of A, B, C, D, and 10 floor each, and it was 90% Jewish. And we had a big terrace on top of the building for the children to play, not on the street but on a terrace, and it was on the 10th floor. And I had so many friends, and my mother and father was tailors, and they was working for themselves, and we had really a nice life. We didn't have telephone at that time, but people was coming knocking at the door and say, "Hi Moshe, hi uncle, come have a nice cup of tea." And my mother would go in the kitchen and make a cake, and then we sit down and have cake with tea. And in Paris at that time, it was the style to drink a cup of tea very thin with sugar that you take in your mouth. It was so wonderful. The people were so nice, and we had a lot of friends coming, and I was playing with a lot of kids. But my mother and father was not rich, but at that time they didn't buy me dolls. My mother was a tailor in tailoring, so from the spool of the thread she made me little clothing and made design on the spool like dolls. And when I used to go visit my friends in the building, my friends will exchange their dolls with my little dolls, and I had a fabulous time. And I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of friends during the war. But one time when my father started to go to the war, it was in 1940. I was 8-year-old, and I said to my father, I was always looking at the window, and I said to my father, "Oh, Papa, look, they're coming to pick up people in trucks." So my father said, "Oh, don't worry, they're not going to pick me up because I was a soldier." So he went down, and they say, "Oh yeah, you're good to be picked up." So my father right away realized that he was going to be taken. So he said, "Oh no, you got the wrong guy. Come, I'm going to show you the right guy." So luckily it wasn't a German, it was a police. But the German was there too. But the policeman came up with my father, and my father pushed the policeman in the apartment where my mother and I was, and my little brother. And my brother at that time was about 4-year-old. No, 2.5-year-old. And also, so the agent, the policeman said to my mom, "Where did go your husband?" She said, "Oh, I don't know." So he left, and he went to that Madame Roland, a nice neighbor that we liked very much, because my father was doing special clothing for her, and she always came down to talk to us. She liked us very much. So meanwhile, he went to her to hide, and at the end of the day, she came and asked for a suitcase for my father, that he should be able to go further, because she wasn't able to keep him for a long time. And then the German still was around, and we was living with my mom, and we was always trying to hide in different homes, in different apartments, because they said they was going to come to take the women too. So it was a nice church across the way, and the nuns knew me because I was always working with my mom and my brother. So they came to my mother and they say, "We can take Charlotte for a little while you can hide with your son." and my father was also in different hiding places. And then at one time we reunited together, and my father said, you know what, we won't be able to escape so much. We have to have a plan to go a little bit further. So
were you with your mother at that time?
Yeah, I was with my mother at that time. And so we went to hiding in a nursery, at the church, and 2 other neighbors. But after that, it was impossible. Nobody could take us anymore. So some friend came, and unfortunately, it wasn't a friend. It was Jewish people that was working for the German to make a living. And they say, if you take your children to that orphanage, and it's called Rue Lamarck, near the Sacré-Cœur, we put the children there, and then you go with us, and we pass you to Vichy, and you won't be taking. And then when you're there, then we take the kids, and we pass them to Vichy. But they say, give us any jewelry that you have, any money that you have. So my father gave jewelry, money, and put us to the orphanage. But before they went away to Vichy, they wanted to come and say goodbye. So they came to the orphanage, and what did those Jews that work for the German? They called the Gestapo, the German, and circled the whole orphanage and take everybody who was saying goodbye to the kids. So my mother was taken there. And my brother wasn't there because he had scarlet fever, so he was in an hospital. And my mother was supposed to go to see. She didn't know if to see him to say goodbye or me, but she came to me. Unfortunately, that's where she was taking. And they was taking on a truck, and my father was with my mother, and my father said, let's jump the truck. At one point, they could have jumped the truck. So my mother said, if I jump the truck, they're going to kill me. I won't see the children. So my father said to my mom, we live only one time in life. So he jumped the truck, and she went, and he escaped. And he came back to me to say that he escaped and I shouldn't worry. But he has to go in hiding. So he went a couple times, and then at one time they got him and knocked his teeth out. But then he went another time, and then he got papers that if he goes to work for the German in the east of France, his wife not going to be deported. But the whole time of the war, we didn't know where they was going, these people. So my father felt, well, let me attempt to work for the German, and then my wife not going to be deported. Meanwhile, I was in the orphanage. My brother was in the hospital, but then none came to pick up some people came to the nun because it was with nun hospital. They came to pick up my brother and put him in a home outside of Paris. Me, a Romanian woman came for me, and she said she wants to adopt me. So I went with her, and I went to the apartment. It was near the Eiffel Tower. I remember near the Eiffel Tower. Unfortunately, I don't remember the apartment. I wish I would have remembered, because the janitor helped me a lot there. One day I go down to the janitor and I say, hi, and she said, you know, Charlotte, something is fishy. All the kids who are coming to this apartment, they disappear. I say, oh, I'm going to find out. So I went back to the apartment, and one day a German came and talked to the women in German. Luckily, I talked Yiddish with my family before the war, and I understood what the German was saying to that woman. It was the kind of German I could understand. Not all the German I can understand, but I was lucky. And he said, is she ready? She said, give me the money for her. So he said, I give you the money when I pick her up. And she said, oh, you know what, Charlotte, you're going to go in a beautiful castle. I understood that it was no castle because she wasn't feeding me right. She didn't let me wash. She said, you're going to be washed at the castle. She was giving me just an apple and a piece of bread for the day. So I went down to the janitor, and the janitor said, "What can I do for you?" Because I said, "I know I'm going to a camp." And at that time, I was 10-year-old. So I knew a woman. My mother said, "If anything happened, get to that woman." And it was the address where we was living. And I give it to the janitor, and the phone wasn't working at that time, so she sent a telegram. And that woman is called Madame Elazar, very close friend to us, but she was a French Jew, and they wasn't taking the French Jew at that time. And she had a little girl like my age, Betty. She was my best friend. So she came to pick me up, and the woman said, "What you doing here? You're not supposed to know that she's here." So she said, "Oh, her mother told me that she put her in the orphanage to go to Vichy." She said, "Oh, okay." So she said, "Well, bring her up for supper." So when I went down with that Madame Elazar, I said, "Don't worry, it's no supper for me. I got my supper. It's an apple and a piece of bread." So she took me, and we never came back. So that was one stop. But my father was clever. He knew how to get in touch with that woman. So after a while, he got in touch with that woman, and he said, "Do you know where is Charlotte?" So she said, "Yeah, she's by me. But I heard they're going to come and take the French shoe, and I don't know if I can keep her." So he said, "Okay, I'm going to make arrangement to send for her." So he sent a big truck, a noodle truck, and a man came for me and put me in that noodle truck, and I say goodbye to that Madame Elazar, and I went to the east of France, and that couple had a little farm, a small farm, and it was a post office at the same way, and it was the east of France in the Ardennes. And when I arrived there, I saw my father. I was so happy. So my father said, "Look, I cannot keep you because I work for the German, but these people, the Quatreville, going to keep you." I asked them if they're going to keep you. I said, "Fine." But unfortunately, after a month or a month and a half, she got the announcement on the phone that they was coming to pick up all these Jews that was working for the German. But it was a big German just across the farm, and he knew my father. My father asked him if he can make me come, but I'm going to live with those people. He said, "Oh, yeah, no problem." But when they came to pick up the Jews, that Mrs. Quatreville, who was keeping me, my father picked me up, and we ran in the woods. And she said, "You know what? If you cannot go all the way with her, it's a little home at the edge of the woods. Leave her with that woman, and you go on, and we'll see what we can do." And the big German knew that I was there, so they went right away to that woman to look for me, but they didn't find me. And she said, "No, the father picked her up," which was good because like that she didn't have any responsibility. But when my father was running in the woods, they sent the German shepherds to run, so my father was exhausted to carry me. I was 10-year-old, so he dropped me in a little hole at the edge of the wood, and he ran to that woman and said, "Pick up my daughter." She said, "I don't know if I can do something." He said, "Do something because I have to run." So he had a way to run to work with the underground, and that's where he ended up to work with the underground. And that woman, she was so afraid, she put me in a wheelbarrow, covered me, and got me back to the Quatreville. And the Quatreville said, "What are we going to do?" But fortunately, the whole village, that it was a small village, it was raised during the war. So the next home next to that farm, it was nothing on top. So, but it was a cellar. So from their cellar, they went to that cellar and put me in that cellar. In that cellar, I had a mattress on the floor, a carousel lamp, a basin to wash myself, and a bucket to make. I made in a bucket. And they were so nice. They picked up my bucket every day. They bought me food. And the grandmother was a grandmother. She taught me to knit stockings, and time to time she will stay with me a little bit. But the German came constantly to harass them, because they say if they find the daughter, they're going to find the whole group, because the father not going to let me go. And each time they came, nothing happened. But one night, it was a girl. They had a baby, a 2-year-old baby, and a girl, an 18-year-old girl, and she had a fiancé who worked for an outfit in the village, and he was on a furlough, and he didn't go on time back where he should go. But me that night, I said to them, I cannot stand the cellar anymore. I want one night in a bed and be with everybody. So they made me go up, and that night they came to look for him, for that fiancé of that girl. Her name was Jeanette and he was Robert. And when he heard the German coming in to look, but he didn't know if they're looking for me or for him, so he picked me up, and in the dark we was going to jump in the back of the home, but luckily the German wasn't there, but it was the French gendarme, and they say, "Come down, Robert." So when he heard "Come down, Robert," he knew it wasn't for me, so he dropped me on the floor, and he went with them. But they came back with the German, and they say, "You dropped something." He said, "Oh, I didn't pick up my bag. I dropped my bag." But I went right under the bed. It was a single bed, and right under the bed, because I knew if they're going to find me, they pick up the whole family, and it was a church across the way. They're going to kill them all with me. So I didn't say a word, and they went with their bayonet under the bed, and it was a part like that from me, and they went under the bayonet. I didn't know if I should scream or what, because I saw the bayonet coming into me, but I thought of these people, what they did for me. I didn't scream. So they left, and when they dragged me out of the bed, I was white like a sheet. They gave me a cognac to drink. They didn't know if I was going to faint or what. They said, "No more. You cannot come up. You have to stay until the end. You have to stay there." And I promised to stay to the end. So at one point, my father was afraid. She was communicating, that woman was communicating with my father. She said, "It's very dangerous for Charlotte." So he came with the underground one day, and he killed that big German. That big German was the whole thing, because the other German didn't know about me. Just that big German of the village knew about me. So he came and killed him with other underground, and he left a note that he did it. And the woman, when she came the next day, visit to find out what happened there, first of all, the whole day nobody moved, because they was afraid the whole village, they're going to kill the whole village for that German. But the next day, they say everything is all right. They took away that German, and she found the note that my father said, "Don't worry, he's not there anymore." But still, they couldn't let me go up anymore. I stayed there. And what I did, not to lose my mind, I was making up stories, telling that I have 2 kids, I have a home, I'm taking the kids to school, to the doctor, and I had a boy and a girl, and I even had a little red car. And guess what? After the war, I found a husband, and I got 2 kids, and I had a little car.
A little red car.
Yes, a Triumph. My husband had a Triumph, a little
that.
Triumph.
Yeah.
Yes. And after the war, the people that was in the village didn't have a hint that I was there. So when I came up, when the American came and throwing candies to everybody, they made me come up. I was very big because I didn't have exercise, and they was feeding me well. They couldn't believe that they hide me. So they made a block party for the village, because they hide me. It was tremendous. It was tremendous. But then after, again, my father, after the war, tried to come by and tried to pick me up. And he picked me up and we went back to the apartment. But it was not a regular apartment anymore. It was bad memories. My mother wasn't there. And we was listening to the radio, because from the radio we could listen. They was bringing back deportees in many hotels. And then they put lists to see if they came back. So my father and I went to several hotels to see if my mother was coming back. But then, unfortunately, 6 months after, we got a certificate from the German that she died in January 1943 in Auschwitz. So that was the end of that. And my poor brother and my father foresee so many things. And unfortunately, he didn't foresee when a nice cousin of his from a restaurant told him in 1938, let's go, Herschel. The name of my father was Herschel. He said, let's go to America because it's going to be bad. And my father didn't believe. He said, no, I'm with the French people. Everything going to be okay. So these people, my cousin, we met them after the war in Los Angeles. But unfortunately, we lost my mother. And my father went to look for my brother, and the communication after the war was no good. So he went with a bicycle. And he knew that my father will remember him only as a soldier. So he put a picture as a soldier in his pocket. And when the Red Cross helped a lot. In fact, I give a lot to Red Cross because they did a fabulous job to find my brother. And they gave him 5 addresses. And 2 addresses, it was a boy of 12-year-old, and my father was looking for a 6.5-year-old. So the 12-year-old said, oh, you're my father, I want to go with you, because he didn't want to stay where he was. So my father said, if I don't find my son, I will come for you. And when the third home, he saw my brother, he said, I think you are my son. So my brother said to him, you're not my father. My father was a soldier. He said, he was a soldier? All right. He took out the picture and he said, is that your father? He said, that's my father. So he recognized my father as a soldier, but not as a civilian. So he took him. And guess what? The bad part of it, the people was nice to keep him, but they made a beggar of him. He was begging. He was going to beg. And when he came home to us, he recognized me, jumped on me, said, oh, that's my sister Charlotte. But when we told him to sit at the table to eat, he said, no, I'm not allowed to eat at the table, only under the table, and you throw me whatever you want. For a couple months, he wouldn't come to the table to eat because he said, if they find me at the table, they're going to hit me.
What a story.
Yes. So anyway, after the war, unfortunately, I had to go to a home for children because
you were liberated by the Americans.
Americans, yeah. And can I continue?
Yes,
yeah.
Please do.
After the war, my father said, you know what, I have to go for work. I have to find work. And I cannot raise you and go to work. I'm going to get married.
Where were you at that point?
With my father, back to Paris, and back with my brother. So I raised my brother for 2 years because we was alone. My father didn't get remarried right away, but 2 years after, somebody introduced him a nice woman, and she married my father. And my brother took to her because he didn't remember too much of his mother. But me, I had a hard time. So they sent me to a camp for children.
This was in Paris.
Yeah, in Paris. They sent me to a camp for children where it was psychologists and psychiatrists organized by Jewish organization for kids who don't have either one parent or 2 parents that was missing either one. So after the war...
when coming from Paris to the United States.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. So after the war, I went to that camp and I stayed about 6 months, and then I came back and I tried to get used to my stepmother, which I respected her as a friend. We become friends. First, we wasn't too good together, but after I respect her as a friend. But for my brother, she was terrific. And my father did a lot for my brother. From a beggar, my brother went to England to study, and he went to the university, and he became a dentist. Can you imagine? From a beggar, he became a dentist. So my father was very proud. In fact, he put us one time at the table, and he said, one thing I'm going to tell you kids, I don't want you dishonor me. I don't want one goes to prison or one to have a baby without a husband. So anyway, so my brother became a dentist. And then for me, it was hard to find somebody to marry. So my father, we went to Israel. My father said, would you like to establish yourself? Because I didn't want to stay to France. I was very upset and too many bad memories.
So your brother became a dentist while you were in Paris?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so my father was a very big gambler. And you're going to see at the end why he was a gambler.
But this was, could have been what, about 1940 what? What year
that was
be?
1948.
48?
Yeah,
okay.
1948.
And your brother at that time was a dentist?
No. He didn't finish dentist. He finished while I was in America.
Ah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was pursuing. He was starting. Yeah.
Okay.
And at first, he was supposed to be a doctor, but he couldn't take it. He couldn't take it too good. So the thing is, it was going to take him. So he wanted to give up. But a friend of my father said, don't let him give up, because he's going to be taken to Indochine, which was the Korean War. So he said, let him stay. Let him do dentist if he cannot be doctor. And that's why the friend of my father pushed him to be a dentist, and he became a dentist. But me, meanwhile, my father said, do you want to go to Israel because you don't want to stay here? I said, yeah, I would like. So we went to Israel in 1957. And in 1957, it was still a war. And how we got to 1957 in Israel, my father was a big gambler. And he won the three first horses. And when he came to me, he said, oh, I won big. Where you want to go? So I said, to Israel. So we all went to Israel with my brother. And when I was there, I felt, no, I don't want another war. They was talking about war. I wasn't sure. So we came back. The second year, my father won another 3 horses. So he says to me, what you want to do? I say, I want to go to America. So he said, okay. But at that time, my brothers decided, no, I want to go study in England. So he went to study in England, and we went to America with my stepmother. And we was in New York visiting cousin. But when we was visiting the cousin, my cousin said, do you want to stay here? I said, yeah, I would like to. But we couldn't stay because we had tourist visa. So, but she said, you know what? If you go to Canada, with being that you're French, you can stay there, and then when you make your paper, you can come back here. I said, well, that's an idea. So I went to Canada, and I met very close friend to my mother and father that knew me like I was a baby. And they had 5 kids, and when they met my father and I, they said, you know what? She can be a 6th kid. She can stay here as long as she wants. And if she doesn't like it, she goes back. But I stayed there. I said, I'm going to stay 3 months. I stayed 3 years with them. So much I liked it. But my father at one point said, you know, Charlotte, it's good to stay, but you're not married. And he wanted so much I get married. He said, you're not married. So you know what? Come back to Paris. So the woman, Mrs. Fragman, a friend of us, who was very nice, she said, you know what, before you go to Paris, take her to the Laurentian. It's like going to Atlantic City. It was a nice resort. And she said, if you don't like it and she doesn't like it, go back to Paris. So we went to the Laurentian, and there we were sitting at a table in the dining room, and my father, again, is a gambler, so he sees my husband-to-be, he sees my husband with his wife, and he said, you know, Charlotte, if you play your cards right, that man sitting at the table there going to be your husband one day. So I said to my father, Papa, are you crazy? So he said, no. In fact, I'm not taking you back. You're staying here. You elope here with that man. But I said, he has a wife. He said, you elope with that man and you come back for a honeymoon in Paris. And he was taking pictures and he asked my address. And I kind of like him, but I knew he was married. So I said, I cannot give you my address. I don't communicate with married men. He said, it's a little story behind. So I gave him my address, and we come in.
But you knew he was married.
Yes, but he sent me a letter that is an instance of divorce. That was his last trip with her. And when she would see me in the hotel, she would say, are you looking for... Because he was always coming with us. He was talking Yiddish with us because he couldn't speak English. And then he was taking a boat ride with my father, with me. And the wife, when she would see me, she would say, are you looking for Alex? Down the hall. So then he sent tickets for me to come and visit his family when he got the divorce paper. And then he asked me to come and see one of his shows. He was in the show business, amateur. And I went to see a show, and the father was dead, not there. And the mother said, oh, you can stay with us. And I stayed with them. And then I went back, and I came back for the New Year's. And he gave me the ring, and he said, ask Charles de Gaulle if he'll let you stay in the state. I said, I don't ask Charles de Gaulle. Ask me if I want to stay in the state. And we got married in Canada. We got married in Canada, but I couldn't go to the state because I didn't have the papers. So he went, and 3 months after, they let me come to live in the state. And my father said, nah.
Where did you go from Canada?
To Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia.
Because he was from Philadelphia, my husband.
Alex.
Yeah, Alex was from Philadelphia. And when I arrived to Philadelphia, I said to Alex, you know what? As soon as I can, I want to become citizen. So I become citizen, and I was so proud to be American, because when I become American, they said to me, you are more American than those who are born here because you choose. And I was crying, because when I was in France, all the time I was in France, when I was asking for papers, they said, don't ever say you're French because you are born from foreign parents. That's why I couldn't stand the French anymore. But then when I married Alex and I become American, I said, this is my country. This is it. And I got two little kids, and I got a red car, and I got all what I was dreaming.